This is former All-Pro Dolphins lineman Richmond Webb, and you're listening to The Grueling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Truth About Fantasy Football, the Grueling Truth Radio Network's weekly fantasy football show, brought to you by Gridiron Mo. Gridiron Mo is a new interactive football app that lets you call what the offense or defense will do in a live NFL game and compete against others around the country. Check it out at gridironmo.com or thegruelingtruth.net. I'm your host for the weekly fantasy football show, Matt Andruscavage, and along with me, I've got two co-hosts, Os Davis and Aaron Zepnick. How's it going tonight, guys?
I was doing great until last night. That was a great week of football.
Yeah, there was a lot of really nice games this week. The Oakland-New Orleans game, great finish. Seattle-Miami was a good finish. Green Bay-Jacksonville. I mean, the Carolina-Denver game.
A lot of games like that.
Yeah, there was some good one-possession games. Even Baltimore and Buffalo, one possession, even though it's a low-scoring game, that's awesome. That's what the NFL wants to see. That's what the fans want to see. You don't want to see, every game being 38-10. So
right.
I was
and with plenty of intrigue in fantasy too.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, a lot of good things happen in fantasy. If you're, a lot of I think a lot of number 1 and number 2 picks did pretty well yesterday.
Yep.
Not all of them. Sorry, Sunday.
Not all of them.
Yeah, a few of them didn't. Like Julio Jones, I don't think, but he was nursing an ankle, and I think Odell Beckham really struggled against Dallas. But we'll get into that.
Devonta Freeman, who somebody on this show was pimping
real hard. What did he end up getting?
He had 4 for me, and I picked him pretty early in one of my leagues, and didn't go so well.
Yeah, the jury's still out on him. I wasn't high on him, but it's because of Tevin Coleman, but he could still rebound. There's a lot of time left. It's only week 1.
I appreciate your optimism, sir.
It's nothing to rebound from, right? This was one of the guys where you questioned, okay, how much running back by committee will there be? Well, you just found out it's going to be about 50-50. We thought it was going to be, much higher towards Freeman, but it's not. It's not. So
it looks like Tevin Coleman's going to get a sizable amount of carries every game if he's healthy. I mean, I think Freeman's a good back, but it's hard to say what'll actually happen in that offense.
Mm-hmm. We know more now than we did a week ago.
Yes,
you could take a look at probably 75% of the teams in the NFL right now. The guy that started week 1, out of those 75%, I mean, we know Gurley's the guy in L.A. We know AP's the guy in Minnesota. We know Langford's the guy in Chicago. We know Lacey's the guy in Green Bay. How many of those guys can stay healthy for 16 games?
Right.
And
it
does not happen
a number
anymore.
of them are going to go down.
And, right now, the guys that were smart enough to get good handcuffs or have depth at the running back position are going to be the guys that, they have some inconsistencies like Devonta Freeman. But if you have a guy, like I have one guy that I'm going to boast about here in a little while in all 3 of my leagues, and I got him very late, and he's my sleeper, and I'll explain why. But there's a lot of, I guess, running back by committee. T.J. Yeldon got a lot of, he got all the carries for Jacksonville this week. Is that going to happen when Ivory comes back?
Well, we don't even know when he's coming back because he inexplicably got admitted to the hospital before game time, so we don't know. And I heard today that he was released, but we don't know when he's coming back. So up to this point, owners that have T.J. Yeldon ought to keep, I would, depending on your matchup, I think T.J. Yeldon's the guy you start.
Absolutely.
But like you said, there's going to be other places that have running back by committee that, they're probably things that are the way they are right now is not how it's going to be in probably week 10. So that's why I believe very strongly in the strategy of drafting running backs early because, man, if you get 1 or 2 guys that go down and you've got depth, once it happens to a couple owners that don't have any depth, man, their team is almost sunk. depending on your scoring.
Yep.
So why don't we get into what were some of the guys that you had a little bit of a little boasting on a guy. Who else do you feel did well for either for your team or you witnessed them do well that you maybe weren't expecting them to do well?
Well, I'm totally curious. I want to hear what Aaron has because he teased it. So I want to hear what he's got.
Well, this isn't the guy I was talking about, but the guy that surprised me this week, and I have him in one of my leagues, and I picked him just in case he was good again. And I think Jordan Matthews, we talked on the show about staying away from Philadelphia receivers. Well, in like 14th round in one of my drafts, he was there, and I'm like, well, if nobody wants this guy, I guess I'll take him, kind of thing.
That's a good time to get him.
He had a pretty darn good week. I know he scored a touchdown. I think he had 5 for a $107 or something like that, or 7 catches for a $107. And them stats could be off, but he had a surprisingly good week for, first game quarterback, playing a decent defense in Cleveland. I think they have, a decent secondary. I don't think they're a top 10, but, I didn't expect good numbers from him, and I thought he put up decent numbers, and I had him on my bench, and I was kind of regretting it, but I didn't need him. So, but my favorite player of the week was Theo Riddick. I have him in all 3 leagues. I got him late. He was kind of a sleeper pick, and here's why I picked him. I figured Detroit's going to be in shootouts or down in a lot of games this year. And Abdullah gets the carries when they're ahead, but he also has fumbling issues. So Riddick did get to step in and be that guy to kind of run out the clock last year when Joique Bell was hurt. And I just think Riddick is a guaranteed touch guy. You have to get him his 10 to 15 touches a game. He catches the ball out of the backfield if they're down, which is a plus in PPR leagues. Theo Riddick, I think he put up 22. I had him as my flex in one league, and I didn't start him in the other 2 because I have AP and Lacey in one, and in the other one I had Devontae Freeman and Arian Foster, who I will never start again, by the way.
Well, he was only one stop at the goal line away from scoring a touchdown. I mean, Seattle held firm on that one.
It's a game of inches.
The little plunge. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I have other reasons, but I won't name them on the show for, keep it from getting into a political discussion. But
it's fantasy. So
I don't care.
Yeah, I think Theo Riddick is a very good pick. I think, like you said, the Lions are going to be down a lot this year, and when you're down, and especially if you watch Matthew Stafford, he's the kind of guy where he'll either launch it. He's used to launching it to Calvin Johnson. If he doesn't go downfield, he does the check down very well, and Theo Riddick is going to be the check down guy. So I would agree that he's the kind of guy that's going to get at least 7 balls thrown his way every game. And, he'll probably catch 4 or 5 of them easily, maybe more. So, yeah, if you could get him late, or if he's still in your waiver wire, I would definitely agree. Theo Riddick is a guy you add to your roster. He's a real good running back 3 or 4, and he could step in a pinch if you get a guy hurt.
I'll tell you, I will probably start him this week. I know they're playing Tennessee, who shut down AP, but again, he's going to get those catches out of the backfield, which will help his PPR numbers. I just think that he's a safe play at a flex at the very minimum. So if you have a flex, I would put Theo Riddick in as your flex. If you do not have a flex, he's worth a thought at an RB2. If you went early on a Thomas Rawls or a guy that you're not real high on or didn't play very well the first week or is on a crap offense, I wouldn't start him over like Gurley or AP or any of the guys that underperformed in week 1, just because you have to think that eventually they're going to get the running game going. Offenses are historically behind the defense early on in the year, and especially in the run game. So don't panic yet.
I would agree. Having
said that, we had some shootouts in week 1. We had some shootouts in week 1. I mean, you guys were just talking about the Lions already showing a passing game, and they weren't the only ones. So, I mean, Mr. Luck had a pretty good game there in Indiana. The Oakland-New Orleans game went pretty high scoring, too. There wasn't much defense out there either. So,
sure was.
Not all defenses are created equal.
True, and not all passing attacks are created equal, and some teams are already suffering from a defensive back injury bug. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So,
well, Oz, what did you have for a surprise positive of the week?
Well, surprise positive of the week. Okay, so you know how in every league, probably an hour or two after you make the draft, you go in there and you see that one dude that makes 18 transactions in the first 36 minutes or whatever, and you're wondering what the hell is he doing?
Every league has one.
What is he doing? Yeah. See, this year I was that guy. I picked up and dropped Chris Hogan twice of New England, and ultimately I did have him on my roster. He did outscore what? I've got him outscoring Emmanuel Sanders, Allen Robinson, and Sammy Watkins. At least 2 of those combined, pretty much he outdid it in the flea flicker game. I was just going to say, unfortunately, I did not play him. So,
I was going to say, if you played him, that was a really gutsy move.
I will be playing him this week. I thought about it briefly last week, but nah. I think in week 1, you have to go with who you drafted. The highest, just because you obviously believe in them. I mean, the matchup can't be that bad in week 1 that you don't want to start him. But it was tempting. It was tempting to start him. But again, I was going with the Patriots theory, right? You don't know who's going to score for the Patriots. Unfortunately, I also have LeGarrette Blount, and I didn't start him either. He had a nice game.
He had a good game.
But the Patriots aren't supposed to be this predictable, right? So I got a little bit burned on that. I think I'll be starting Mr. Hogan this week, and he'll probably give me like 2.7 points in flea flicker. I wanted to give a shout-out on the positive side. I wanted to give a shout-out to A.J. Green, who had monster game. It's funny because a lot of the, punditry or blogosphere or whatever you want to call it is ripping on Darrelle Revis right now. But geez, maybe A.J. Green is pretty good. Maybe Dalton is a top 7 or 8 fantasy quarterback like he usually is by the numbers. Maybe he's the only target in Cincinnati. Didn't fantasy players know all this stuff before the season? It's like, why are they blaming Revis? I'll be very interested to see what Revis does this week against Buffalo. But
he is slowing down if you watch him.
Sure.
He does not have the burst that he used to have, but A.J. Green is also, he's coming down. He's coming down with balls that, he's just making big plays, and he had like 180
mortals
yards.
Don't make these plays that he's making is what you want to say. I mean, he just had a monster game for me, like 29 points in the flea flicker format. He's got to be like one of the top 4 or 5 of the league. I think Andrew Luck was number 1. But
Andrew Luck had a big day.
Green had to be pretty high up there. So he was definitely my favorite player of the week. Him and Mr. Hogan I'll go with.
Okay. Yeah, for me, the surprise, I didn't have him on any of my teams. The surprise game or player for me was C.J. Anderson. I think
there you go. I'm glad
Carolina's great defense, and he was able to run behind basically a makeshift offensive line, and he just made things happen. Now, it's week 1. Is that going to be what we're going to see all year long? I'm not so sure. However, I think at this point it's safe to say that I think his trade value is really high right now. If you weren't sure about C.J. Anderson and you're thinking about trying to get something for him, if you're getting a lot of trade offers, maybe you'll wait a week or so, and if he has another pretty good game, maybe you think about it, because otherwise you just hang on to him and see what he does, because it's possible that it wasn't just us that were saying that he could have a down year. You look at the roster around him. They, going into this season, they look like they could possibly be in some kind of rebuilding mode, but I'm not so sure about that. They look like they're going to compete for the playoffs. I don't know that they'll make it. They might, but C.J. Anderson could end up having a good year. He was my surprise positive for the week.
Look, anybody in the Grueling Truth League or in my Yahoo League that's listening to this that wants to trade me C.J. Anderson, trade me. I'll do it right now. I'll give you Sammy Watkins. There you go. Have him. Just give me. I'll take C.J. Anderson. I was pimping this guy at the beginning of the year. I think he's going to have an excellent year. And for the next few weeks, if Jamarius Thomas is out, he'll be getting even more numbers, especially in PPR league.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I got to give you props, Oz. You were correct on him, and neither Matt nor myself were very high on him. I think he went in all three of my drafts. He went earlier than we even talked about him going. So, late second, early third is where we kind of pegged him, I believe, when we talked about him.
Yeah, he went high in my leagues too.
He went pretty mid-second, and I think he was the benefit of Devontae Booker fumbling early. And he just kind of ran with it, and he performed. He had a great game. I don't think he would have had as many carries had he been average and Booker takes off and doesn't fumble. I think it would have been a different story. So that week one can set the tone for an entire year, though. So if he could,
I think this still could go either way.
By fumbling, what I did like though is Booker got some more chances to touch the ball after that. He didn't just bench him. So. What about least favorites? Are we covering the least favorites of the week?
Oh, man, least favorites. Well, let's see, least favorites. Brandon Marshall really I was hoping for more out of him, but I don't know. I watched a good portion of the Jets-Bengals game. I thought the Bengals actually did a pretty good job in coverage. So and Fitzpatrick wasn't looking away from him. He was throwing at him a bunch of times, but a couple times I think he dropped it, and other times I thought the Bengals defense actually played pretty well. It was a tough matchup. Bengals aren't a bad team, so it definitely hurt. But I think almost anybody that had Brandon Marshall was hoping for more. But I had there's a couple guys like that. Delaney Walker had only like 3 catches. But tight ends will get anywhere between 3 and 10 catches, so it's not like it's a horrible game. And we can't really
unless
think
you're
of
Gary
else.
Barnidge.
Gary Barnidge, that's a good one. That's a real good one. A friend of mine had Gary Barnidge, and I was just kind of monitoring as I was going through all the scores.
Barnidge.
I couldn't believe he had 0. Did he end up with 0?
2 targets. Yeah. 2 targets, 0 catches. 2 drops, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had him in my starting lineup
over
Dwayne Allen, who actually had a really good game.
Yeah, Dwayne Allen had a good game.
Yeah,
I started
I went with Barnidge. I drank the Kool-Aid from last year. I won't do it again.
Barnidge, I went against my start who you drafted rule, and I went with Martellus Bennett because I figured he was going to be big. He was the anti-fantasy player of the week. He had an amazing game. Unfortunately, most of that was blocking, which we don't award in fantasy ball, but still, he killed Barnidge. He had 6-point-something points. Barnidge had 0. He easily could have.
I'll tell you, that's a guy you play this week. Because like you said, how New England will switch off guys who have the big days. I think it's going to be Martellus Bennett's week this week.
Is Gronk going to be back?
Don't know. I don't know that I care. I'd still play him.
Okay.
I don't see why not.
Well, my least favorite players, and I have 3. We touched on Devontae Freeman, and he only had 4 for me this week. Adrian Peterson, not on any of my teams. Well, he's on one of my teams. He only had 3 points. He had 19 carries for 31 yards. Are you kidding me? Not even 2 yards a carry for Adrian Peterson. I think I could. I don't think I could imagine that ever happening. But the biggest surprise of the week for me, on a negative fashion, and I don't own this player at all, thank God, but Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant had 0.
Other guy.
Like, okay, Gary Barnidge had 0. He's a tight end. Like, Cleveland Browns, RG3,
right.
new, I could see that. Des Bryant having 0 against a division rival.
And the fantasy Cowboys played well. They played well in fantasy terms. So.
Yeah, I mean, we knew the Giants' defense got better. We talked about Janoris Jenkins from the Rams going there. We knew they got better, but I don't think they're that much better to the point where they shut out Des Bryant for 0. I mean, that's just befuddling to me.
Yeah, that was definitely. But he, in typical Des Bryant form, didn't end up coming down with a touchdown in the end zone. But and this time, I definitely agree with the call. I thought this was the right call. He did not catch the ball, and he had the exact same reaction as last time. But I mean, he almost had 6 to 10 points, but not quite. I think he ended up with. Did he have a 0? I thought I saw him at like 1.1 or something like that.
I think he had 1 catch for 8 yards. He had 0 in my league because we don't do the decimal.
Oh, no, non-PPR.
Yeah, so that's silly to do decimal points.
0. I'd like to see like a score of 0.7 or something like that. 0.5.
Yeah, and Odell Beckham too. I mean, Fortunately, I played against Odell Beckham, so he only ended up with like 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that Dallas did a pretty good job of making the rest of the Giants be forced to beat them. And there's actually somebody on the Giants that, if we're going to talk about guys that you should be looking for on your waiver wire, I've got a guy from the Giants. But I thought the Giants did a pretty good job of getting Sterling Shepard involved, getting Victor Cruz involved, who it's like, wow, I haven't seen him in 2 years, and he could be – Victor Cruz is a viable wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 4.
Oh, he's going to be a fantasy darling. Yes, he is. He's going to have a great season. And people that are getting on the bandwagon now are going to be rewarded as long as he can.
He's not the Giants that I was talking about. If he stays healthy, I think he's going to have a good year. Yeah. He could get like 50 catches, maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns. But
he looked good. He looked real good.
Yeah, and
your advice, Aaron, in the going into the draft, your advice regarding Beckham, which I was down with, turned out to be good too. Again, Cruz is if Cruz is getting the volume that he was getting before he was injured, I mean, there's just too many passes to go around. And I mean, what did like every Giants receiver except Beckham score a touchdown this weekend? It felt like it. I don't think Beckham.
Everybody but Odell.
Beckham was number 2 in most leagues that I saw, and he's not going to be worth that. I think that was a bad value pick just based on 1 week.
Yeah, and in one of my leagues, a guy traded up to number 2 to get Beckham, and he was at number 5. And I'm like, dude, you could have taken Beckham at 5. More like, but I think there's too many balls to be spread around there. The more I was wrong on A.J. Green. I didn't trust the Bengals offense. Losing Sanu and Marvin Jones, I thought, wow, they're going to struggle. And Eifert's out for a while. I guess it's kind of like the Stafford and Calvin Johnson thing. I think A.J. Green's going to be great. Don't be surprised, though, if he burns somebody's team when they need a win. Because they run into the right defense on the wrong week, or if you're playing against them, the right defense on the right week. And I could just see a 1 catch for 11 yards or something. I mean, I think there's going to be some inconsistencies there. So people, and maybe I'm wrong, but Andy Dalton's been a pretty good quarterback for fantasy numbers, but he's also been very inconsistent.
Wow.
I would agree that A.J. Green will be, of the great receivers, I think he will be one of the 2 inconsistent ones, the other one being Des Bryant.
Wow. See, okay.
One had a great week, one had a bad week. I wouldn't be surprised if he rolls this week.
Sorry? Say it again?
I said I would not be surprised if Dez and A.J. Green traded roles this week, where
the
offense in
Pittsburgh will
Dallas
take Dez away.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh will take Green away.
Right. But I would not be surprised if Dallas puts more of an emphasis on getting Dez the ball because he's going to be talking all week. And I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh really locks down on A.J. Green. So, like I said, do not be surprised if they trade one as a bad week and one as a good week every other week, or, when they have the matchups, or, depending on what the offensive game plan is and stuff like that, too. I mean, you're never going to be able to tell 100%.
I'll make a side bet with you right now, Aaron. I bet A.J. Green has another good game. Here's why. The Bengals are playing in the Steelers more or less the same defensive attack that they saw against the Jets, I'm suspecting, based on what I saw last night. I think you're going to get basically the same thing. You're going to get heavy pressure from a scary front seven and not much from the secondary. Look, Dalton was sacked 7 times, and he still found Green repeatedly. Did they not think they were going to throw it to Green? Of course they did. But today everybody's slamming Revis for being weak about it. I don't think who do the Steelers have that's going to guard him? They can say they're going to key on him. It's like keying on Calvin Johnson. He's still going to get his catches. So I'll make
something different, though, when the Bengals play the Steelers. I'm telling you right now, there's something different about it. They don't play well historically against the Steelers. I would not be. Don't be surprised if A.J. Green. I would say this week A.J. Green is probably good for 4 catches for 50 yards, and that's
See, no,
I think they're gonna put the clamps on him.
I will bet you, Oz, and I will just bet you in the sake of wearing egg on our face, just a gentleman's bet. I will come on and say how correct you were next week if A.J. Green has more than 10 fantasy points this week in our league.
10 on Flea Flicker.
Yes, in our league.
Okay, fair enough. I was going to say 10. So
I think the Bengals are going to try to run.
They'll be unsuccessful if they do.
The Steelers' offense is going to keep them off the field, too. I'm telling you, that offense, and when they get Le'Veon Bell back, their offense is real good.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they don't need much more than that wide receiver fellow that they have.
He's ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, they say, you're going to keep him off the field, except this guy's a threat to whip off an 80-yarder anytime. So you might have a real short drive. You might not keep him off the field despite your best intentions if you're going to Brown.
Now let me say this though, with a little contingency, I could see A.J. Green getting some garbage stuff at the end of the game when they're down. However,
possible, yeah.
And I'm sticking to my bet. I'm sticking to my word. However, I think that most of it will come in the second half when Cincinnati's down.
Yeah.
Wow. See,
that's
okay, I could parlay you too. Do you want to give me like 2 points for Cincinnati? I'll parlay you that Cincinnati wins and A.J. Green has a decent game.
Wow. Have you ever watched the Bengals play the Steelers?
Sorry?
Have you ever seen a Bengals-Steelers game before?
But look, we're talking fantasy in some respect here. You don't get points for sentimentality. You don't get points for
No. The Bengals do really well against A.J. Green. Sorry, the Steelers.
It's a new year. It's a new year. Right now, the Bengals are undefeated. So I'm.
You've been doing shows with Mike Goodpasture way too long.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually trying to suck up to the boss, right? That's actually my tactic here. But that doesn't get me fantasy points either.
So should we move on to Stardom and Stidham?
Yep, Stidham and Stardom. Anyone want to jump in first?
Oz, you're on a roll. Go ahead, buddy.
So Aaron and I talked about this before the show, and actually we've got the same idea here. I don't think it's like any brand new idea, although judging from the waiver wire, perhaps it is. In our league, perhaps it is. But basically, the thinking is simple. If Demaryius Thomas is out, you're thinking about the other options in Denver. Emmanuel Sanders is probably taken by somebody in your league. I know I have him. I got him pretty low, 5th or 6th round, I think. So yeah, I'm playing him. I started him last week. I only got about 6 points out of him. I'm hoping to get much more. But we were discussing the possibilities of Virgil Green, the tight end, who is a serious unknown quantity. They have him in the Flea Flicker League. I believe he's only owned in about 20% of leagues. He's lower than that in Yahoo. So this guy is available. If you want to take a flyer, if you don't like what you have at tight end, I don't recommend panicking out of Barnage yet necessarily, but if you don't like what you have at tight end, I say pick this guy up. It's a better waiver wire pickup than Safarian Jenkins, that's for sure. Safarian Jenkins, I think a lot of people are going to be sucked in by him and his one touchdown, but don't do it. Don't do it. Pick up Green. The only other sit I have is this. I am going to sit Sammy Watkins. I drafted him pretty early, but I'm going to sit him this week. He might play, but it's a short week. I think he's hurt. I just don't like rolling the dice like that, and I've got Chris Hogan on the bench. So I'm not going to play Sammy Watkins. In fact, I have Sammy Watkins in both my leagues, and I'll sit him everywhere. I don't like that Buffalo offense at all.
Can't say I blame you there, Oz. My sit-em are actually two guys that I started in different leagues, but they're both running backs. My sit-em, I would sit Arian Foster this week against New England's defense, and I would also sit Eddie Lacy against Minnesota's defense. If you have two other solid running backs, Eddie Lacy only had 61 yards on the ground, and Minnesota's defense is a pretty darn good run defense if you have a better option. Now, if you're sitting there with just Eddie Lacy as your number one, and you went receiver early in the draft, and you're sitting there with not a lot of options, I would actually think about starting Theo Riddick or someone like that over Eddie Lacy.
Wow. And you're a Packers guy.
I would agree with you.
I am, but
Eddie Lacy's one of my three.
If we're going to beat the Minnesota Vikings this week, it's going to be because of the passing game. And I think James Starks can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit better. I think he'll see more reps this week.
Agree.
I
totally agree with that.
My stardom, and I would, just to echo what Oz was saying, there's also another tight end on the waiver wire that looked impressive to me, that Jack Doyle from Indianapolis.
Yes.
I think he's kind of picking up the red zone role of Coby Fleener. He's another tight end that's out there that I think in a lot of leagues that you can get. And I would also start him if you don't like your tight end situation. But the biggest start has got to be any wide receiver from the Denver Broncos. Indianapolis secondary is so decimated by injury. They talked about it in the Detroit game. I can't tell you how many times. And I think that Emmanuel Sanders will have a big day, and whoever else starts for Denver, I think will have a big day. But then there's another start that I wanted to really quickly touch on.
Oh wait, I wanted to get in on that real quick. Also you're going to want to consider Dwayne Allen and anybody else playing for Indianapolis as well. Andrew Luck can keep up with this with a shootout. I think. I mean, he was the number one fantasy quarterback going into this season, or number 2 or 3. I think he's probably number 1 right now. Heck of a nice show last week, and I think he's going to throw just as many touchdowns as he needs to this week as well. So I think, Indianapolis wide receivers and tight ends are a good pickup too.
Yeah, I'm starting T.Y. Hilton and Dwayne Allen in one of my leagues this week. So the other stardom in this, Matt, you can talk about yours, but this will be my pickup of the week also. Will Fuller, wide receiver from the Texans.
Yep, that's a good one.
I think he's going to be a waiver wire dandy. And every league that I'm in, this guy was on the waiver wire too. Alex Smith had 37 fantasy points in some of my leagues this week, the way the points are done. Actually third, right behind Andrew Luck and Drew Brees. So I know it was against San Diego, and I know that their defense is not great, but what you got to remember is Kansas City was ahead for most of that game, and he still threw for 340 yards or whatever it was and 3 touchdowns. So I think that Kansas City's offense is going to be better than people think.
Very possible. Spencer Ware, the people that drafted him are probably really, really happy. He had quite the week. I got a couple starts and sits. You mentioned I had 3 guys. One was Eddie Lacy. One was Sammy Watkins. The other is Carlos Hyde. I like Carlos Hyde. He had a very effective game yesterday against the Rams. But this week they're going to be on a short week in Carolina.
They're playing a big boy team this week.
That's right. And my hope is that they just play very competitively and give him a good game. I think Carlos Hyde can get some points. I just think if you got the kind of team where you've got 3 running backs and he's just one of your 3 guys, you may want to go with your other 2 depending on your matchups. But I think he's a guy that you got to look at and try to. I think you got to try to at least try to get a better option. One thing that for a waiver wire pickup, I would recommend Shane Vereen from the Giants. They're going to be playing the Saints this week. It's going to be another potential shootout. Eli Manning likes to dink and dunk to Shane Vereen. He'll probably get somewhere along the neighborhood of 8 to 9 catches. Wouldn't be surprised. So he's one.
Again, I agree with that one, but I'm going to disagree with you on your team. I'm going to disagree on the Carlos Hyde. Only because C.J. Anderson played those same Panthers, and we were just talking about what a great game he had.
This is true.
I think Carlos Hyde.
But that was at home. This is going to be a road game. It's going to be a difficult game. I'm not saying Carlos Hyde won't do anything, but let's say you've got Carlos Hyde, Mark Ingram, and a guy like maybe DeMarco Murray. I'd be more apt to play Ingram and Murray this week.
Okay. Yeah,
but if he's all you've got, I would be looking at least trying to get a Shane Vereen, a Theo Riddick, something like that.
Okay.
I would be looking at it. Another potential a waiver pickup for defenses. This is the week. This is a good week where you start following the Cleveland Browns around. Right. I would definitely pick up the Baltimore Ravens defense this week. With RG3 out, the Ravens defense should do very well.
Right.
I'd snatch them up.
Get with Josh McCown. You're not a McCowniac.
I like him, but this is Cleveland we're talking about. I think Baltimore's going to do well.
Can I get in on this as well? Because I got my streaming defenses of the week.
All right.
Okay, I did not get to comment on my least favorite player of the week. So let me tell you about the Rams defense. My God. I mean, this is clearly an emotional reaction, but Jesus, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, 28 points given up to San Francisco. Okay, I picked them up on the 14th pick going, woo-ha, the season's starting, okay? That happiness is over. I'm dropping them. I'm picking up a streaming defense. By my numbers, which involve, the over-under line and the point spread, of course, Baltimore is the best pick of the week. This week. There are 6.5 favorites? 6.5 favorites in a game where the over-under line is forecast to be 43.5. And I would assume it's going to be way lower than that. And I assume most of the points are going to be on Baltimore's side. This is a team that played. What was the score on that Buffalo game? 14-7?
13-7, I think.
13-7 was the final? Yeah. The other, another good one is the Patriots, but they're probably taken in most leagues you're in. This game against the Dolphins is a 41.5 point over/under, and the Patriots are favored by 6.5. So the book is not expecting a lot of points. But the most intriguing pick of the week, I think, is this Jets-Buffalo game. Both of these defenses are up for grabs on the waiver wire. Both, of course, are playing on a really short week. The Jets are favored by 1, and the over-under is 40. in some places. Okay, they're expecting a very low-scoring game here. So I think either of these defenses would be a good pickup. I think Jets defense would be an awesome pickup because, boy, Buffalo offense looked bad last week. Boy, they looked bad. They looked awful.
I would agree. I think the Jets are a good pickup on defense.
Yeah, with Sammy Watkins also playing, at a certain percentage of his normal capacity, I think Jets defense will be a nice replacement for my Rams this week.
I got another stardom. I would be looking at Willie Snead. He had quite a game. And, the Raiders defense, granted, New Orleans is really tough at home. And that's where it gets difficult. I think they're home again against the Giants. I could be wrong on that. But Willie Snead,
Would you want to know if they're at home?
Is New Orleans at home or are they on the road? So New Orleans is at home.
That game is at New York.
Okay, maybe I got to scratch that then. When New Orleans is at home, if you got Willie Snead, you think you got to find a way to get him in your lineup. But okay, I thought they were at home again, but maybe, on the road they're a different team. He may not do quite as well, but to me, he looks like he's the go-to guy on third and 8, 3rd and 7. Mm-hmm. They're going to try to get the big plays out of Brandon Cooks, but I think Snead's going to see he might get the most targets this year from Drew Brees.
Snead is available on the Grueling Truth waiver wire. Should I pick him up right now as we're speaking?
Good God, he's available?
He is. But I'm pretty far down on the waiver wire list this week, so I'm probably not going to.
Not as far as I am, my friend.
Are you at 10?
I'm at 11.
Oh, God. You got to love that.
I was the second highest scorer this week. Not that I want to talk about my team, but
if you're a team that has Sammy Watkins,
I have no guys I can cut in that league right now.
Wow.
If you're a team out there that has Sammy Watkins and maybe Demaryius Thomas, maybe Keenan Allen, that was a big loss. Obviously, the big pickup was Tyrell Williams from San Diego. He's likely the replacement. But I'd be looking more at Travis Benjamin.
Yeah,
I think he's going to get the majority of the throws. Him and Gates, obviously. Antonio Gates might still be available in a lot of leagues because he's kind of an aging tight end. And another guy I'd look at is Jesse James, tight end from Pittsburgh. You watch him out there, he's just a little bit slower version of Heath Miller. He catches the ball the same way. He runs all the same routes. And I thought I was watching Heath Miller. I think Jesse James gets 60 catches this year.
Wow.
So those are my sit-em, start-em, and pickups of the week.
So real quick, I just wanted to touch on one more thing before we go. So a lot of people pick Jordan Reed as, in many of my leagues, he was the number 2 tight end taken. I just wanted to say, if you're watching at all, last night in the Washington-Pittsburgh game, how many times they run 3 tight end sets, Vernon Davis and Niles Paul are also looked at. That's why I was not very high on him. And I know he's their number 1 pass-catching option. But I just think that with Garcon, Jackson, Matt Jones, that Thompson looks really good out of the backfield. I think Jordan Reed's going to lose balls just based on the fact that there's so many guys that they're playing right now. If you look,
I would agree with you, Aaron, and I was not on board with that earlier.
What's that?
I was not really on board with that earlier. I wouldn't. I'm not one of the guys that wanted to go out and get Jordan Reed. I'd rather have Greg Olsen, but even he might get less touches with Kelvin Benjamin's emergence or back to his rise. But as far as Jordan Reed goes, I still thought he'd get 70, 80 passes. I think you're right. I think he gets about 55.
Yeah, I just don't think he's a big weapon on third down that Cousins looks to. So he'll catch some balls on third down. He'll get a lot of targets. I just think that they're going to be pressure targets where it's not going to be like Travis Kelce or, Gronkowski, obviously, when he's back, where it's a point to get him the ball. And I don't think Reed is going to be that type of tight end this year. I really don't.
I think Jesse James will outcatch him this year.
I would not be shocked. I think the top three tight ends are Gronkowski, Olsen, and Kelce.
Yeah.
And I think it's a distant fourth after that. And I think Dwayne Allen would be in the conversation. Kyle Rudolph is another one. I think that he's a little overlooked.
Delaney Walker, he's so consistent. He's probably going to get another 80 balls this year.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tight end options, but I just think that Jordan Reed is kind of like a Jordan Cameron to me. I think he's just a guy that's just going to be forgotten about. And with Washington playing so many tight ends, he will get balls, don't get me wrong. But I think that Niles Paul being back and Vernon Davis being there, I just think that with their personnel that they play, the three tight ends, he can't always be the guy that's going to get the ball.
Well, the defense knows that, and they want to take him away. So
right.
you see Washington's got – they're 5 deep at receiver. They got at least 2 running backs and, like you say, 3 tight ends. There's a lot of players out there that Washington – a lot of options for Kirk Cousins to find. And you can't keep forcing it to Jordan Reed every time. I think you're right on about that.
Well, thank you. I just have a really, really strong need to be right.
Don't we all?
You're like Michael Scott. It's not like I have to be right. It's not like my need to be praised.
Right. So how many
well, we
leagues
should probably go ahead.
How many leagues are you guys playing in? Oz, are you just in the Grueling Truth League, or are you in other ones?
I'm also in a Yahoo League that's based in another website, which will not be named. But, yep, just the 2. And that one's a standard Yahoo Play League. Of course, the Grueling Truth League is the fleaflicker.com league. Slightly different scoring there. So, yeah, but I'm only playing in 2.
I'm in 2 as well. I got a Dynasty League and a Yahoo League.
So how are you guys doing? Are you 1-1 or 2-0?
I'm 2-0. Antonio Brown, I was down 60, but Antonio Brown, Larry Fitzgerald, and D'Angelo Williams took me all the way back, and I won by 10.
Nice combo. Nice.
Wow.
Well, I always
my Dynasty League is really good. My team's good.
I always lose in week 1. Like I've said, in my Yahoo League, I was the only team to score under 100 points. So I'm in last. I'm in dead last. I started that league in dead last year. I made the playoffs. And in the Grueling Truth League, okay, here is my bad beat story of the week. I'll keep it short, but this is just how pissed off I am. All right.
We got less than 2 minutes, so go ahead.
I was losing my match by 4 points. I still had 2 players. I'm like, wow, this is no problem. I'm going to smoke them. I'm going to win. I had Todd Gurley and the Los Angeles Rams defense. I ended up winning by like 3 and a fraction points. This is how angry I was, but at least I won. I never win in week 1.
How would you be angry over a win?
Oh my God! Because man, it was not a moral victory. Let me put it that way.
He ended up winning 111.8 to 109.15.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I should have won by like 35 points. So
better luck to you this week.
Yeah, that was one of the worst wins I've ever had. I cannot take pride in that win. Cannot.
We're going to wind this one down. We got about a minute left before we got to get off the air here. So I want to thank you guys for jumping on. I think we got a lot of good information. We'll have even a little bit more clearer picture next week. It's really tough to go off totally just off one game, but we'll have a little bit more of an idea next week. So be sure, everybody, to continue to go to thegruelingtruth.net. Check out all our articles on the CFL, college football, NFL, and also Major League Baseball. We got shows we got a baseball show, various team shows, and also our NFL Pick'em, CFL Pick'em, and also boxing. So Be sure to go to thegruelingtruth.net or the Grueling Truth Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Grueling Truth. And so for Aaron Zepnick, Os Davis, I'm Matt Andruscavage. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth Fantasy Football Show, where the legends speak.